We use statistics in a lot of different ways in data science. In this lecture, I want to refresh your knowledge of hypothesis testing, which is a core data analysis activity behind experimentation. We're starting to see experimentation used more and more commonly outside of academic, scientific environments and in day-to-day business environments. Part of the reason for this is the rise of big data and web commerce. It's now easy to change your digital storefront and deliver a different experience to some of your customers, and then see how those customer actions might differ from one another. For instance, if you sell books, you might want to have one condition where the cover of the book is featured prominently on the web page, and another condition where the focus is on the author and the reviews of the book. This is often called A/B testing, and while it's not unique to this time in history, it's now becoming so common that if you're using a website, you're undoubtedly part of an A/B test somewhere. This raises some interesting ethical questions, and I've added a reading to the course resources and would like to encourage you to check it out and join in a discussion. But let's refocus back on statistics. A hypothesis is a statement that we can test. I'll pull an example from my own research area of educational technology and learning analytics. Let's say that we have an expectation that when a new course is launched on a MOOC platform, the keenest students find out about it and all flock to it. Thus, we might expect that those students who sign up quite quickly after the course is launched will have higher performance than those students who sign up after the MOOC has been around for a while. In this example, we have samples from two different groups which we want to compare: the early signups and the late signups. When we do hypothesis testing, we hold out that our hypothesis as the alternative, and we create a second hypothesis called the null hypothesis, which in this case would be that there's no difference between groups. We then examine the groups to determine whether this null hypothesis is true or not. If we find that there is a difference between groups, then we can reject the null hypothesis and we accept our alternative. There are subtleties in this description. We aren't saying that our hypothesis is true per se, but we're saying that there's evidence against the null hypothesis, so we're more confident in our alternative hypothesis. Let's see an example of this. We can load a file called grades.csv. If we take a look at the data frame inside, we see we have 6 different assignments, each with a submission time. And it looks like there are just under 3,000 entries in this data file. For the purpose of this lecture, let's segment this population into 2 pieces: those who finished the first assignment by the end of December 2015, and those who finished it sometime after that. I just made this data up, and it gives us 2 data frames which are roughly the same size. As you've seen, the Pandas data frame object has a variety of statistical functions associated with it. If we call the mean function directly on the data frame, we see that each of the means for the assignments are calculated. Note that the date-time values are ignored, as Pandas knows this isn't a number, but an object type. If we look at the mean values for the late data frame as well, we get surprisingly similar numbers. There are slight differences, though. It looks like by the end of the 6 assignments, the early users are doing better by about a percentage point. So is this enough to go ahead and make some interventions to actually try and change something in the way we teach? When doing hypothesis testing, we have to choose a significance level as a threshold for how much of a chance we're willing to accept. This significance level is typically called alpha and can vary greatly depending on what you're going to do with the result and the amount of noise you expect in your data. For instance, in social sciences research, a value of 0.05 or 0.01 is often used, which indicates a tolerance for a probability of between 5% and 1% of chance. In a physics experiment where the conditions are much more controlled and thus the burden of proof is much higher, you might expect to see alpha levels of 10 to the negative 5 or 100,000th of a percentage. You can think of the significance level from the perspective of interventions as well, and this is something I run into regularly with my research. What am I going to do when I find out that 2 student populations are different? For instance, if I'm going to send an email nudge to encourage students to continue working on their homework, well, that's a pretty low-cost intervention. Emails are cheap, and while I certainly don't want to annoy students, 1 extra email isn't going to ruin their day. But what if the intervention is a little more involved? like having our tutorial assistant follow up with the student via phone. This is all of a sudden much more expensive for both the institution and for the student, so I might want to ensure a higher burden of proof. So the threshold you set for alpha depends on what you might do with the result as well. For this example, let's use a threshold of 0.05 for our alpha, or 5%. Now, how do we actually test whether these means are different in Python? The SciPy library contains a number of different statistical tests and forms a basis for hypothesis testing in Python. A t-test is one way to compare the means of two different populations. In the SciPy library, the t-test ind function will compare two independent samples to see if they have different means. I'm not going to go into the details of any of the statistical tests here, but instead would recommend that you check out the Wikipedia page on particular tests or consider taking a full statistics course if this is unfamiliar to you. But I do want to note that most statistical tests expect that the data conforms to a certain distribution, a shape, so you shouldn't apply such tests blindly and should investigate your data first. If we want to compare the assignment grades for the first assignment between the two populations, we could generate a t-test by passing these two series into the t-test ind function. The result is a tuple with a test statistic and a p-value. The p-value here is much larger than our 0.05, so we cannot reject the null hypothesis, which is that the two populations are the same. In more lay terms, we would say that there's no statistically significant difference between these two sample means. Let's check with assignment 2 grade. No, that's much larger than 0.052. How about with assignment 3? Well, that's much closer, but still beyond our threshold value. It's important to stop here and talk about a serious process problem with how we're handling this investigation of the difference between these two populations. When we set the alpha to be 0.05, we're saying that we expect that there will be a positive result 5% of the time just due to chance. As we run more and more t-tests, we're more likely to find a positive result just because of the number of t-tests we have run. When a data scientist runs many tests in this way, it's called p-hacking or dredging, and it's a serious methodological issue. P-hacking results in spurious correlations instead of generalizable results. There are a couple of different ways you can deal with p-hacking. The first is called the Bonferroni correction. In this case, you simply tighten your alpha value, the threshold of significance, based on the number of tests you're running. So if you choose 0.05 with one test, and you want to run 3 tests, you reduce alpha by multiplying 0.05 by 1/3 to get a new value of 0.017. I personally find this approach to be very conservative. Another option is to hold out some of your data for testing to see how generalizable your result is. In this case, we might take half of our data for each of the 2 data frames, run our t-tests with that, form specific hypotheses based on the results of these tests, then run very limited tests on the rest of the data. This method is actually heavily used in machine learning when building predictive models, where it's called cross-fold validation. And you'll learn more about this in the 3rd course in this specialization. A final method which has come about is the pre-registration of your experiment. In this step, you would outline what you expect to find and why, and describe the tests that would back up a positive proof of this. You register it with a third party. In academic circles, this is often a journal who determines whether it's a reasonable test to run or not. You then run your study and report the results, regardless as to whether they were positive or not. Here, there is a larger burden on connecting to existing theory, since you need to convince reviewers that the experiment is likely to test fully a given hypothesis. Okay, in this lecture, we've discussed just some of the basics of hypothesis testing in Python. I introduced you to the SciPy library, which you can use for t-testing, and we've discussed some of the practical issues which arise when looking for statistical significance. There's much more to learn about hypothesis testing. For instance, there are different tests used depending on the shape of your data, and different ways to report results instead of just p-values, such as confidence intervals. But I hope this gives you a start to comparing the means of 2 different populations, which is a common task for data scientists. And We'll follow up some of this work in the second course in this series. This lecture also completes the lectures for the first course in the Applied Data Science with Python specialization. We've covered the basics of Python programming, some more advanced features like maps, lambdas, and list comprehensions, how to read in and manipulate data using the Pandas library, including querying, joining, grouping, and processing of data frames, and the creation of pivot tables. And now we've talked a little bit about statistics in Python and dug deeper into the NumPy and SciPy toolkit. In the next course, we'll dig into plotting and charting of data, dealing a bit more with statistics and how we present data to others and how we build a compelling story for the data we have. I'll see you then.